Today we're visiting a country that's being fought over by Russia and the EU. And no, I'm not talking about Ukraine. This country is one of the oldest in human history. It's one of the most bizarre and hauntingly beautiful countries in the world, and it has a population that overwhelmingly wants to join the EU, and a government that rigs elections and has been infiltrated by pro-Russian oligarchs. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Georgia. Our journey begins in the small city of Kutaisi, but the confusion starts before we've even left the airport. We're greeted by an arrival lounge filled with EU flags. Wait, is Georgia in the EU? Is Georgia even in Europe? Well, no and maybe. It's complicated. More on this later. My first impressions of Kutaisi were that it was like Italy on mushrooms. The conventional beauty of the cobbled streets and leafy neighbourhoods were tempered with strange art and a seeming love for off-putting statues. It had a vibe that I couldn't quite put my finger on. It was like a city had been designed by your mad aunt. It was love at first sight. So we're on a side quest to see the Kutaisi Cathedral, but to pass the side quest we need to climb the steepest road in the world. So this is Bagrati Cathedral. It's built in the 11th century, so it's actually very, very old, although apparently it was restored like maybe 20 years ago. Unfortunately there's a wedding going on in the church, so I don't think we'll be able to go inside. But yeah, this place is so cool. You can really feel like the ancientness, like it's surrounded by all these crumbling ruins and like old buildings. Apparently there's a ruin of an old fort just over there, so I guess we'll check that out. Let's have a look in here. It's ancient ruins. Whoa. What is that? Wow, what a nice view. It's kind of controversial as to whether or not Georgia is like actually geographically in Europe, because the prevailing wisdom is that anything south of the Caucasus Mountains is technically Asia, and north of the Caucasus Mountains is in Europe. And technically Georgia is mostly to the south or in the Caucasus Mountains, so it's kind of in between Europe and Asia geographically. Yeah, Kutaisi is great. It's giving me kind of like Bohemian, a little bit kind of like witchy vibes, but in a good way. So this is the ruins of the Palace of the Kings and the Church of St. George. So it's like an 11th century ruined palace. You can see inside from here. I love Georgia. It's got such a good vibe. It's kind of reminds me of the south of Italy or something. Like everything's a little bit kind of falling down, but everyone's growing grapes. People love cheese. People are very friendly. And when you arrive at the airport, no questions asked. They just straight away give you a 365-day tourist visa. Like, who does that? It's just so friendly. They've just written wine in many different languages. Yo. As I mentioned earlier, geography would tell you that Georgia is mostly in Asia. It's actually closer to New Delhi than it is to London. But according to a 2013 study, about 80% of Georgians say they feel European, while only 5% said they felt Asian. I don't know what happened to the other 15%. Maybe they were just as confused as me. Georgian identity can be a tricky thing to pin down. First meal in Georgia. Yeah, I've heard really good things about Georgian food, so let's try. That must be one of the most unique dishes I've ever seen. The sourness goes so well with the chicken. Beautifully cooked chicken. Oh, that is unbelievable. I never thought that would work. Okay, so it's early in the morning. We're waiting for our taxi to take us to the bus station to take us to Tbilisi. We wanted to go to Svaneti, to Ossetia. It's a place like in the mountains that has all these like beautiful ancient towers, but unfortunately the weather's going to be really bad for the next like 3 days, so we thought just go to the mountain to spend 3 days just in pouring rain. It's probably not a good idea. Tbilisi is a city with 1,500 years of history, and it's all written here on the walls of the subway for everyone to see. As soon as I arrived in Tbilisi, I knew this place was special. It was like all the unique quirks and both conventional and unconventional beauty that I was already falling in love with in Kutaisi had been turned up to the max. When you travel a lot, it's rare to find somewhere truly unique and surprising. Tbilisi is just that, one of a kind. So we're in Reich Park in the center of Tbilisi. So in that little planet thing over there, you can get a cable car up the hill and get some really good views of the city. Please come inside. A little bit stinky. Yeah. I think it's an old windmill. Maybe an old windmill. My favourite thing about travelling is when you can find your own like little secret place, and that windmill is an example of that. But also I think Georgia's kind of an example of that. Like even though there are quite a lot of tourists here in Tbilisi, it still has a feel of like a place that is not too commercialized, not too like touristic, that has lost its like original charm. Like it's charming, it's pretty, it's not too perfect. Like it's got good, bad, ugly, beautiful, everything in one place. We've been seeing this anti-Russian graffiti all over Tbilisi, so why f*** Russia? We wanted to find out more about the feeling of Georgian people, so we went to a protest that night outside the Georgian parliament. The protest itself was peaceful. There were a lot of Georgian flags, a Ukraine flag, even an American flag. These protests are more than just solidarity for Ukraine. They also come from a fear that Georgia could be the next Ukraine. The situation is very complex, but to summarise, 75% of Georgians want to join the EU, and they were granted EU candidate status in 2023. However, in 2024, Mikhail Kavalashvili, who is pro-Russian and anti-EU, and interestingly used to play professional football for Man City, won an election that is widely considered to be a sham. Voter fraud, death threats and intimidation were rampant, and the whole thing was allegedly orchestrated by pro-Russian oligarch Bidzina Ivanishvili, who controls large amounts of the Georgian media and military. This led the EU to freeze Georgia's application for membership,
as healthy democracy is mandatory for EU membership. Georgians were furious and demanded a new election, a new president, and a new political system, free from Russian interference. Georgians see Russian interference as an unwelcome relic of the Soviet period and want their future in their own hands.
So I've been seeing a lot of Tbilisi city life. Today we decided to get out of the city and explore a little bit of the countryside. So we're here at Zin Valley Reservoir. It's the water reservoir that supplies all of Tbilisi with its water. More broadly today, right now we're in the foothills of the Caucasus Mountains. Today we're pressing on further into the Caucasus Mountains towards the border with Russia. Yeah, so Georgia's a very water-rich country. So our tour guide was just saying that it's got 26,000 rivers. Which for such a small country is quite amazing, so that's probably why it's so green all the time. So in the 3rd century AD, Armenia, Georgia's neighbour to the south, became the first country to adopt Christianity as its religion. And about 20 years later, Georgia followed suit, becoming the second Christian country. So this was before the Roman Empire made it the official state religion. So at the time, Christianity was still a very, very small religion. So we just stopped for food in this restaurant. Really good food, super nice. This place is so beautiful surrounding us. We're on our way to the Russian border still, but just over there, over that beautiful mountain over there, like literally 1 kilometer away, is South Ossetia, which is a breakaway part of Georgia that has been controlled by Russia since 2006. So we're actually not allowed to go there at all, even though it's only 1 kilometer away.
I mentioned earlier that Georgia fears it could be the next Ukraine, but some would argue that it was actually the original Ukraine. In the early 2000s, pro-Russian separatist forces occupied 2 regions of northern Georgia, Abkhazia and South Ossetia. They've held them ever since, and Georgia effectively lost 20% of its territory. Russia claims that their military weren't involved and the separatists acted alone, but this is heavily disputed, and Russia remains the only country in the world to recognize their independence. Abkhazia and South Ossetia remain mysterious to this day, with visits by non-Russian tourists basically illegal.
So we've made it to the Georgia and Russia Friendship Monument. Yeah, honestly, this has got to be one of the most beautiful views I've ever seen in my life. So the Georgia-Russia Friendship Monument itself is kind of ironic. It's built at the time of the Soviet Union by the Soviets. It's more like a monument to colonialism rather than a monument to friendship, to be honest, I think. The monument itself is very interesting. The right-hand side of the monument is showing Georgian culture, history and fairy tales. The left side is showing Russian culture, friendship and fairy tales. I mean, the Russia-Georgian relationship isn't exactly great. It's a friendship monument between two countries that have no diplomatic relationship whatsoever and basically hate each other. So we are at the Trinity Church in Kazbeg, deep in the Caucasus mountains. So just behind me right now is Mount Kazbeg, which is the border between Russia and Georgia. Yeah, so it's only 7 kilometers away. So one of the main reasons why Georgia wants to join the European Union, obviously it's partly for like economic reasons, trade reasons, but another reason is for security. So ever since the invasion of Ukraine, obviously tensions are high and Georgians are very scared that they'll do something similar to them. So it's a very real threat that one day this area could be a battlefield again.
We made it back to Tbilisi for one more weird and wonderful day. It came as precisely zero surprise that the most surreal city in the world happens to have a clock tower that looks like it's straight out of a Wes Anderson movie. And we'd arrived just in time for a show. In the street markets of old Tbilisi, you can find anything you could possibly need, from second-hand dolls to a cute souvenir, a typewriter, gas masks, soulful music, strange carpets, military-issue weaponry, or even a nice new water bottle in the likeness of Georgia's most famous son, Joseph Stalin. Georgia isn't an easy country to put into words. Maybe it's the land of 1,000 statues. Truthfully, it's not like anywhere I've ever been before, but it's not too unfamiliar either. It's like an experimental cover of a song that I've heard before. The words are the same, but it's never sounded quite like this before. Its location at the crossroads of Europe and Asia means it's probably not too close to you, but it's also probably not too far away either. If you want a little bit of mystery in your life, come to Georgia.
Subscribe.